I always tell people, always, when I'm talking to them personally or I speak at a conference, something like that, follow McDonald's. Okay. Don't, you're not putting a Big Mac on the menu, but I'm like, go follow them, because when by the time McDonald's has put something into the field, they've probably spent 20 to 30 million dollars in R&D and marketing and making sure it's going to work. Okay. And then when it comes out, okay, that was a very painful lesson for their franchisees, and they back it up with probably $300 million in advertising. So when they take the meatless burger off the menu because it doesn't sell, don't put meatless pepperoni on your pizza.
The future of fun begins at IAAPA FEC Summit, January 19th through the 21st, 2025 in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Join FEC and LBE professionals for an immersive experience packed with strategic insights, networking, and behind-the-scenes EDUTours of unique local facilities.
Learn how to make your FEC stand out in a crowded market and explore the latest trends designed to elevate your business.
Build valuable connections and leave inspired with actionable strategies for success.
Click the link in the show notes to reserve your spot today.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I am doing great. How are you?
I love that, and I'm doing fantastic.
All right, I'm just trying to try new things. I don't think it's going to stick, though.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Well, you got to be consistent.
It's true. For hundreds of weeks in a row.
That's right. Well, if we've learned anything about success, it's about being consistent. But I have a question for you.
Okay.
Of all the different kinds of pizza out there, and granted, you currently live in Chicago, you're from Detroit, both have very distinct kind of pizzas. There's a million other types of varieties of pizzas out there. What's your favorite?
You know, Matt, I've never come across a pizza I didn't like.
I like that answer.
Style. Yeah, you know, it's a hard question. I will say, like you said, I live in Chicago, and when I moved here, even prior to moving here, when I was visiting here, I definitely gravitated to the deep dish, and I think that is probably like one of my go-tos nowadays if we're like ordering pizza. But I did grow up in Detroit, and Detroit has some pretty spectacular square, very crispy crust pizza that is a league of its own. And, you know, dare I say, I like New York style pizza too.
I don't know. Are those fighting words if you're from Chicago, New York, and Chicago pizza?
You know, don't tell anybody, but
I won't tell us.
Because there's also like the Chicago tavern crust as well. And then even within Chicago, this is maybe like a little known fact to people not here, like the pizza culture here extends beyond deep dish and tavern crust. Like there is a lot of like authentic, like Italian, very thin crust, some like coal fire, like the pizza game here is pretty strong.
Yeah. Which is cool. Yeah.
What about you?
I do love that Detroit style thick. It reminds me of the old Pizza Hut deep dish when they had that kind of greasy crust. I really do like that. We also have some friends here in North Carolina. They're from Chicago that are pretty good at making their own Chicago style deep dish pizza. But I think for my money, if I'm gonna pick a pizza, it's gonna be kind of that medium thin New York, folded over kind of a pizza slice, and just let that grease drip down your arm, and I'm all about it. Yeah.
There used to be a pizza restaurant at the corner of, I want to say like 5th Avenue and 180th or something like that. And it was called Dollar Slice Pizza, which if you think about it, it's probably not great of a business model for a storefront in Manhattan. But I used to change. I used to go to New York for work a lot, and if I was taking transit back to LaGuardia, I would take the subway up to, I want to say it was like right around 100. It was like Harlem basically, and then switch to a bus that would go to LaGuardia, and I would always have time because it was super fast. They just had the pizzas out there in between waiting for the bus. Would go in, would get one slice and like a Diet Coke, and for $2, including tax. I mean, I was having some like, I guess authentic New York, like Ninja Turtles style pizza. And then the last time I went there a few years ago, and it was no longer in business, but I'll always have those memories of the dollar slice pizza.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Now, I know that this comes up in conversation in the interview, so I'm not going to totally steer it in this direction, but toppings, what are you in terms of toppings?
So before last year and my little heart condition, I was a meat lovers guy. You know, pile on the meat, the pepperoni, the ham, the sausage, the bacon. That was awesome, right? Especially on a thicker dough kind of pizza. But if I'm going with that New York slice, it's probably either cheese or just pepperoni, something real simple.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
I don't know if this makes me the most boring pizza eater in the entire world, but my philosophy has always been, when it comes to pizza toppings, less is more. I mean, maybe I'm a 5-year-old, but like, if we're like ordering multiple pizzas, I'll be like, hey, make sure the kids are like get the kids a large and not a medium, cheese pizza. And I'll be like, I don't need all the toppings. I prefer classic. I want bread, sauce, cheese. Now, if there's like arugula, or if there's like a balsamic glaze, or if there's like fontina or some specialty cheeses, I'll veer in that direction. But I don't put the meat on my pizzas. I like eating mushrooms, but not on my pizza. I like onions, but not really on my pizza. I don't like bell peppers as it is. Like, I'm just like, I'm very happy with the cheese pizza.
Well, I do know that there's some people that are shall I say, very into like rating different pizzas, and they will always just do the cheese, right? Because that's the base. And don't worry about the toppings, but if you can get a good cheese slice, you're good. But you mentioned arugula and the balsamic glaze. There's a place here in town that does wood fire pizza, and they do a arugula, balsamic glaze, and then also prosciutto on there. And that is outstanding.
There you go. Yeah.
Really outstanding.
It sounds like I'm qualified to be a pizza rater if they're just looking at, if they just ordered the cheese pizza.
But are you a global pizza expert?
Oh, right. I forgot. We're doing an intro for an interview here. No, I'm not. But our guest today is, because our guest is Jim Howell, the president of none other than Perky's Pizza.
Now, I know that you've known Jim for a while. I've known Jim for a while. He is a character for sure, but there's things about his career and his path that I didn't know and was super excited to hear. But it all works together when you know Jim.
I think that's the best way to describe it. I don't even think we can properly do an intro for this interview. You just got to listen to it. Yeah, it all comes together between pizza and career development and networking and a little bit of a trade show exhibiting strategy at IAAPA. And, he said at one point in the interview, pizza rules the world. And he talks about, I guess you could say he talks about his passion for pizza, but also really talks about it being one of the core staples within a family entertainment center, which is the bulk of the business that he works in within the attractions industry, between that and hotels and resorts, particularly in the US.
And he also talked about the fact that in those family entertainment centers and family entertainment establishments, that so often we hear about different food trends or things that people may say they want on a survey, but it doesn't really ring up at the POS system. So he talks a little bit about his philosophy on trends, which is really, really interesting.
Interesting, and I would also say counterintuitive too, especially like for me, I talk about the importance of using feedback to drive changes and growth, and this kind of adds a layer of use the feedback, like collect the feedback, but also really make sure you are doing exactly what your guests not only say they want, but what they will actually pay for. And then he also talks about the importance of meeting everybody. And this is just some really good networking advice and building relationships over time, and knowing that even if the opportunities don't come to you immediately, of continually I guess staying in touch with people is probably one of the best ways of putting it, that allows you to form and build relationships over time that lead to, whether it's career development or sales and business or opportunities that are going to help you in your career.
And I can't think of anybody better to talk about that. Jim is very outgoing. He's got lots of stories, and this was a super fun interview. So is it time to place our order and get to this interview with Jim?
Yes, it is. Just cheese for me, though. Hey, Jim, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. We are so excited to chat with you today about all things pizza. We know that is a big topic, and I think that there's a lot to unpack from it. Or a lot to slice up, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
To get this kicked off here, tell us about you. Tell us about your background and your career.
Well, that's a trick question. It's a longer checkered path, so to say. It's a very windy path how I got here, but there's a couple of touchstone things I think you'll find interesting. I in my younger days I moved to Washington from California, where I was born and raised, went to Washington D.C., where I wanted to either rule the world or save the world. It's been so long, I don't remember which one, but either way. And I was there for a while, and I putted around a couple of jobs on the Hill and this and that, and there were these stories about these general managers at Domino's Pizza making $125,000, $130,000 a year. And I'm like, man, that was awfully tempting. So I went over there, and long story short, I joined up, and they were the single best franchisor franchisee system that Domino's has ever produced, man. They were making all. So I won. So it was fun. A lot of money, made a lot of money at a young age. It was fantastic. But I won some contest. I don't even know what it was. But anyway, they sent me to the headquarters in Ann Arbor. And I'm walking around and I'm looking, and I'm wandering the international division, and I'm like, there's this big map of the world, and there's 2 pins up there, okay? And one was Iceland and one was France. 2 red pins. Everything else is blue. And I asked the lady, I said, what are the red pins for? She goes, oh, we need somebody there right away. We need somebody. I said, well, who can I talk to about France? So I remember, I'll leave his name out of it, but I'll just call him Doug. Doug comes out, vice president internationally. So we start talking. Literally, he goes, you're hired. He goes, by the way, did you ever... do you speak French? I said, yeah, I took it in high school. He goes, you're hired. So literally, I moved to France, and 40 days later, I was living on my back porch. I could look up and see the Eiffel Tower, man. It was fantastic. And we opened up a store over there. I got them going, and I helped out in Spain and Belgium too. But it was fantastic. I think we got 6 or 7 stores open in a commissary, and it was great. And really had some great stories over there, because once you get over there in a fast food is an American chain, it's a very small group. You get Wendy's, Burger King, all these guys, and you go to conferences, you meet everybody, and that's really important to meet everybody. But then the embassy caught wind of Domino's Pizza opening up. Next thing you know, this is the craziest thing: catering Domino's Pizza to the French embassy. Can you imagine how crazy that is? It was just nuts. And so I met a lot of good folks there. And in fact, one of the craziest stories I had with it that was I got invited to this seminar, and Dan Quayle was the vice president of the United States. When he came, he was at this conference, and they sat me at his table, okay? And I'm there with all these presidents of IBM and all this stuff. I'm sitting there, I look like I'm 12, sitting there in my coat and tie, looking around these guys, and Dan Quayle, he starts coming around, hey, what do you guys do? He goes, Domino's Pizza. He goes, I love Domino's Pizza. I go, yeah. I said, listen, Mr. Vice President, I repeated back his family order because I supervised the store up by the Wisconsin Avenue that delivered to the Naval Observatory where the house is. So he goes, that's incredible. How do you know that? I said, well, it belongs to you. So here I am talking pizza with the Vice President of the United States, and all these other guys are just going like, all they wanted time. It was great, man. But we had a big time with that, But so I came back to the States, and about that time, they sold it off to the locals. They said they sold it to a local franchise corporation in France. So I got back to the United States, and about that time, the bagel craze was in swing. So I remember that, man, just crazy in the 90s there. So one of the guys I met at one of the conferences in Europe was the president of Brugger's, okay? So he got me on board with Brugger's. I was the franchisee in Cincinnati. We opened up 13 locations there in a commissary, and it was fantastic, man. I loved it. But unfortunately for me, once again, I got bought and sold out of every company I started at that point, So they bought the company up, and Steve, his name was Steve, he calls me and says, Jim, he goes, I got this really nutty, probably a dumb idea. And I thought of you first, And I'm like, well, that's good. Thank you. That's great. I said, what is it? He goes, I got these guys over in Italy that want to open up a chain of pizza delivery stores in Italy. I'm like, I'm in. Just count me in. Yeah, no question. And I was married at this time. And so I went, and no, I was in between after Brugger's. I'm sorry, right before I got married. So I went on the most epic job interview of all times, of all job interviews. They're the best. I flew to Italy and drove around Italy for 8 days with 3 Italians in a car, just eating pizza, drinking wine. And, every time I look at a pizza, they'd just be like, what do you think? And I tell them and all this other kind of stuff. So at the end of that trip, I looked at my guy and I said, look, man, my wife's got to come over here and see this, if this works. And so back to the United States, back to Italy for another 10 days. And so we drove around and then I had the fortune to come back and tell my mother-in-law that I was selling my house and 2 cars and moving to Italy to sell pizza. So just think about that for a minute, right? So that was a lot of fun, man. We went over there for 4.5 years, had a big time, and I learned a lot, man. I traveled over there a lot, and selling pizza to Italians was quite that could be a podcast in itself, man, about 3 days worth, So it was just crazy, man. So I came back and got started, and at the time, and I came back to the States again. They sold it off, and I just left. Came back because after 4.5 years, no one's tamed the Italians in 2,000 years. I wasn't going to be the first trying to sell pizza to them, so I was like, I'm out of here, So it was fun. Had a great time. So I came back, and about that time, I caught wind of this scheme that they were going to put a pizzeria in every Blockbuster video in America. Okay, thankfully it didn't work out. Well, I went on this dog and pony show up to Chicago, and I'm like, this is it, man. Walk in, order a pizza, get your video out. I mean, talk about a slam dunk, right? And so it didn't work out for many ways. But one of the guys on that was one of the owners of Perky's, unbeknownst to me. So he said, hey, you got to come down and see what I'm doing. And the rest is history. 26 years later, here I am. Yep. So that's how I ended up in Florida and at Perky's Pizza.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a lot we can unpack about all of those trips.
A lot, yeah.
Like you said, that could be like 3 weeks worth of
for sure. Yeah.
But something I have to ask right away.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned different kinds of pizzas, Domino's, Italy, the whole 9 yards, Perky's. What's the best, and I don't mean brand pizza, but like, do you like thin crust? Are you a thick crust guy? Like, what do you consider like the quintessential best kind of pizza?
Well, the best pizza I ever had.
I live in Chicago, so this is yeah.
Be careful, man. It's funny. Pizza is fighting words, man. Everyone has their favorite, man. Everybody. Nobody cares about the hot dogs. Sorry, Portillo's, man. Sorry, Josh. But sorry, but nobody really cares about the popcorn. Nobody cares about pizza. Fighting words. So I can tell you, it's my favorite place of all time is La Porchetta, and it's in Salsa Maggiore, Italy. It's unbelievable. Okay, it's a deep dish, but it's fried dough in there with stuff like that. So I'm either thick Napoli's, La Porchetta, thick, big, or thin. I'll go thin too. In between is good, moderate. I mean, you top me, but I'm a thin crust guy, or that Detroit style, I guess you say. Detroit style. That thick. So I'm either here or here. I in between is great, but if I have to make it, buy it, or go somewhere, I'm going thick or thin for sure. Yeah.
Well, I feel like you definitely live up and earn your title on your LinkedIn profile of global pizza expert. So I feel like we now have a lot more context into what that is. We got France, we got Italy. What about the general bon vivant part of it?
Back to the global pizza expert. By the way, I've been to 50 plus countries, okay, and more, and I've set up pizza operations in 20 plus. I've consulted in other ones, probably another dozen or so, because there's a lot of places where our food products aren't allowed, in the EU, China. There's some places where they don't allow that stuff, but I work a deal and I consult for them. I get over there and get we go to the market, we get the best flour we can, get the best products we can, cheese, tomato sauce, all that kind of stuff. And I put together a program for them. So I know it. And it's big. I think I'm an expert because ingredient sourcing, ingredient processing, all that kind of stuff. So anybody can make a pizza, but the background of it is very, 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 there's a long trail there. Bon vivant is really a phrase in France. It's like we in America, we call it a good time Charlie, man. Just like, always having fun. I'm always looking for something, fun, amusement, something different, which is why we fish for sharks and hunt for pythons down here. I mean, if it's dumb and questionable, I'm not far behind, Josh. That's what a bon vivant is, and then drinking along the way, So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about Perky's and where people find Perky's and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Perky's has been around for 38 years in its current form. It started as some freestanding units, believe it or not. We had 27 locations around, Tampa St. Pete, and then Pizza Hut started testing their delivery Delco units, delivery and carry out, and basically opened 50 locations, ran Perky's out of business, with a freestanding. But the previous owner said, I have a great pizza. I know it's good. It'll work. And he went down to the local bowling center here and said, let me take over your concession. And that's how he started with so he basically invented 38 years ago, the non-traditional space, as you will, And he did the first iterations of Bowl Expo. Amusement Expo used to be called something else. It was like over to Orlando, like a Leisure World or something. I don't know what it was, but there, IAAPA. I mean, we have 32 years at IAAPA. We've had 32 years. We're in like the top 100. We're like 108 for seniority for booth space too. So I mean, he did that, and then it just kind of mushroomed from there, from bowling to family entertainment to hotel. And then when I got on board, I branched it off into like water parks, hotels, and other places where there's already a crowd, and especially in the international market in the Caribbean and Central America, where bodegas have a tremendous amount of people. Supermarkets are like, might as well be the town hall in some places, So we put them in there and did some other stuff. So that's a Reader's Digest version, but we're probably in every conceivable venue that you can imagine in the family entertainment center world.
So interesting. So curious, maybe even just like pulling back and taking a broad look at just food and beverage trends over the last several years. When I think of the last decade or so, and you talk about, the founder going to the local bowling alley, bowling in particular, has transformed so much, not just from the attraction and venue side of it, but really the F&B has really come along with that. Can you talk a little bit maybe of just how food and beverage, particularly within the family entertainment space, has changed in very recent history, and how Perky's is really staying on top of that and making sure to kind of be the forefront of that change too?
Yeah, that's a big question. It certainly has changed since a few years ago. I mean, it's really accelerated. I mean, when I first came here, you'd go to these bowling centers, and like even our customers were like, oh, can't you paint it? Do something. It was just terrible, and because it was an afterthought, nobody ever thought about it. But what happened was competition is a good thing. These bigger Dave & Buster's came out and started opening these places where they had full bars, wine list, big menus, and big things like that. And I can't remember was it GameWorks? The Steven Spielberg one of the GameWorks did way back when they did it. So you have these folks open up family entertainment centers, like Main Street before there was main event, and that forced everybody to go, hey, I think we should look at that. And then the shows themselves, the Bowl Expo, IAAPA, they started recruiting, some food vendors in there from the outside, non-traditional world. And so I think these operators just saw an opening to, if they improve their food and beverage, people will come, stay a little longer, and order food and beverage. I mean, I have some customers who take it very serious, and probably going from 12, 15 years ago, where there was 12, 14, 15% of revenue, is now 45, 50% of revenue, food and beverage. I mean, if you counted liquor and beer and wine and everything else, but it's really taken a renaissance on in terms. But there's a jumping off point, and that's alcohol. Beer, wine, and alcohol open up your menu and open up your significantly. In the non-alcoholic places like your general family entertainment center, your bounce house, your trampoline parks, things like that, it's still the same items that sell, the top 20 items, your traditional family entertainment center pieces, but those even have gotten better, better chicken tenders, better pizzas, better ingredients. All these things have come along. Even though it's a limited menu, it's still, they have come along as well. So it's been good to see. And we fortunately for us, we started out quality. I mean, that's all we had. We've never changed one recipe in 38 years. They're all still the same recipe. So we started out on the quality side. We never had to adapt any of our recipes or things like that. But so we got, we were fortunate that way.
So I'm wondering if we can go a little bit deeper into some of those food trends, because you mentioned the chicken tenders. Obviously, there's pizza, and there's some staples that a lot of family entertainment centers have. And I was talking to somebody a couple of years ago, and they said that we tried to introduce salads and fruit and stuff like that because people said they wanted it, but nobody bought it. So can you talk a little bit about kind of that piece of it? Like sometimes people say that.
I hate trends. I really do. They're because there's no such thing in family entertainment centers. They're not sustainable. They're not economic. Because in the food and beverage and family entertainment centers, you got Friday to Sunday, 72 hours or less. And so you know, people are coming there for fun and a good pizza that exceeds their expectation, or a good there. They're not saying, "Wow, have you had that tuna fish salad at the you know, the place?" My wife wouldn't eat that stuff if you gave it to her. You know what I mean? They just don't. So people miss the mark because they hear all the noise out there, social media. They go to Chili's and see that they have a gluten-free this, that. I mean, and they say we should do that too, you know. And so they're terribly time-consuming and cost tons of money in food and labor and waste in these trends. I haven't seen one trend. I've been here. This is my 26-year Perky's Pizza. I haven't seen one trend last. That's it. Actually, I take that back. The only one that has lasted is water. Because of trampoline parks, water came in and now it's taken off, you know, but that's it. As far as menu items go, nothing is going to bump off the top 20 sellers, nothing. And no trends because they're not sustainable and people don't come there for that. You know, that makes sense. You know, now I speak with a little bit of forked tongue because if you have a location that is sizable, 55 to 85,000 square feet, you have a full bar, you have wine and stuff like that, you have a menu in there, you probably have a professional cook or chef or somebody in there, that allows you to have those specialties. It allows you to have something on the menu like that because it probably will sell because of your head count. But, you know, I don't want to see healthy items on a trampoline parks menu. It's just a waste of money and time. And it's funny, it's interesting. Thank you for letting me answer this question with the last. I always tell people, always, when I'm talking to them personally or I speak at a conference, something like that, follow McDonald's. Okay. Don't you're not putting a Big Mac on the menu, but I'm like, go follow them because when by the time McDonald's has put something into the field, they've probably spent $20 to $30 million in R&D and marketing and making sure it's going to work. Okay. And then when it comes out, okay, that was a very painful lesson for their franchisees, and they back it up with probably $300 million in advertising. So when they take the meatless burger off the menu because it doesn't sell, don't put meatless pepperoni on your pizza. You know, if they take the grapes and healthy items that were the kids' menu out of that, and they're McDonald's, the highest average unit sales and headcount in the United States of any operation, and now you're going to tell me that you're going to sell them in a trampoline park or a family entertainment center that, you know, that's busy 2.5 days a week. You know, so I always tell people follow McDonald's. They will guide you on those things. You know. So anyway, there you have it.
I feel I just like jotted down some notes here of like some really like core takeaways right here of health food won't last at FECs despite what your surveys say. And I'm a huge proponent of guest feedback and making, you know, feedback based changes. And it's one of the things of saying, okay, here's what the data says. Yeah. And here's what the reality is. So it's probably its own like tangent and rabbit hole on its own. The other one, don't follow the trends because they're not, you know, they're not sustainable in FECs. But I think, you know, one of the biggest things you said is you've got free R&D and feasibility from McDonald's of
everybody.
They've spent all that money in doing that.
Yeah. And they encompass every demographic in the world. And I tell people, I said, listen. There's no trends in family entertainment centers. Okay, pizza rules the world. Period. It's the number one selling item, and go with that. And in fact, every year I do it more often now, but I can produce. I do it now. I can produce a list of. Let me back up. When you become a customer of Perky's Pizza, okay, I have access to all your purchasing data of what's being sold, so we can match up, make sure you're ordering the right amount of dough, sauce, cheese, all that kind of stuff. So I compile all of that data, okay, and I make a list of all the items that's sold in Excel. And it's I don't know, 45, 50 pages. You don't even get to like the 15th page and you see mushrooms. I mean, there's nothing there that says sustainable like that, unless you have a very large entertainment and you got alcohol and beer and wine, you can back it up in a bar with a, you know, pesto chicken and goat cheese pizza, a personal, that's easy because your goat cheese goes on 9 things. But your run-of-the-mill family entertainment center, there are no trends. And yes, Josh, the data, people are like, yeah, oh yeah. They doesn't sell, just like Matt said, they don't sell. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that mushrooms fall so far down on the list because I hate mushrooms, and I'm glad that they're not on there. They're not represented.
Yeah, great.
One of the questions I have for you, Jim, though, you mentioned quality and having quality, you know, since the very, very beginning. And I got to imagine that quality control in all those different areas has got to be a big factor for you as you're selling the pieces and then having them put that together. So how do you kind of make sure that the Perky's pizza in one location is going to be the same as another location.
Well, you see these bags under here, man. That's what keeps me up at night, Matt. We do the best we can to have. We have a pizza making poster, obviously, that shows them how to step by step. We have the upfront training. Sometimes it's on site, so we have online training video. With Spanish subtitles. We have, especially during COVID and coming out of COVID, when people didn't want you around. Boy, I did some FaceTime, Zoom, Teams training. I mean, it was fantastic. So, we do the best we can to keep doing it and go back to them, and hit them with a flyer, hit them with a Facebook pad, something like that. Say, hey, here's how you make your pizza. We just do it. And also, we've taken many steps over the years to make sure it's easy. Like our spoodle is 4 ounces of sauce. Put it on the pizza. Okay, our cheese is diced, so you could pile it like this. You dump it off. There's 6 ounces left. So we've taken the scales, the cups, all the measuring out of pizza making for us. For our pizza. So that's really helped out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about if we talk about sales and sales strategy and really maybe just some of the best practices that you've either seen or that you recommend to your clients to be able to truly enhance their pizza sales from just whether it's marketing within the venue or even getting down to that frontline team member who's standing there at the register.
Yeah, that's a big question, Matt, or Josh, excuse me. The first thing is buy another oven. Okay, make sure you have enough ovens, because what happens is, no, you don't need those 3 ovens on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, but you know what? You need them Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And when you have kids waiting for fries 30 minutes because you have to make birthday party pizzas, it's just ridiculous. And and pizza ovens have the highest rate of return on your investment that there is. Return on investment. Excuse me. I mean, so there's no excuse not to have. If you have 2 now, go get another one. That's how you raise your sales. Is get them out faster and hotter. The second thing is. It starts at that front counter, hey, bring attention. I mean, all of our POP, of course, that one does say, but made on premise, hot and fresh, emphasize that, and at the front counter, hand them a coupon right there. Or, say, listen, hey, today is $3 off a cheese pizza, or it's, a free medium icy with any pizza order. So do it right there and say, and by the way, we make them here on property, on fresh. So I mean it's kind of a dual thing. Also, the main thing you can do with sales too is, and man, this is another thing I hit everybody on. Have a dedicated pizza menu board. Okay, it should be your focus in the middle right there, because has the highest ticket price. It's the #1 selling item. Feature it all day, every day, and nothing makes me crazier than seeing pizza lodged between a $4.99 pretzel and a $3.99 hot dog. I mean, it's just like, it's crazy. I mean, put it up there. You got to have a birthday parties. It's your most, the highest ticket item you have a dedicated menu board. So it's kind of a combination thing of Josh, but, and my successful operators who do it, they sell a lot of pizza. They sell a lot of pizza, and you bring attention to it. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of you selling pizza to others and going back to your longevity at IAAPA, you once told me that you never want to move your booth at IAAPA. I don't know if that's still true, but for the longest time I go in, it's over to the left. So tell me your strategy there.
Well, like all good things, it was by accident, What we used to be in the middle over there. We did a 10 by 20 end cap, and we had tables, and we had hired people to come and help us, all that kind of stuff. Then we did 10 by 10 over here. And then one year we're like, hey, in the middle there, everybody has to go talk to IAAPA, go to the bathroom. So let's be over there by the middle. We did that. And that caused a big problem, because there's lines there. People in our booth line were blocking the other booths, and they complained to IAAPA. So IAAPA came to me and said, look, you take a walk with me, take a walk. So we went down the walk, and they showed me that corner and said, what do you think? It's in the games area, so think about that. You'll be away from everybody. I'm like, I'll take it. And so we've been there. This is our 13th year in that corner. And I'll never leave. Booth 100. They start the whole sign off the floor. Booth 100. Yeah. And they always call me like, hey, Jim, are you doing 10 by 10 or 10 by 20? I'm like, I don't know. So, but and the familiarity with our customers and anybody who's thinking about it, we're there every year in the same spot, man. So yeah. They come, you got to train them. They come see you. Yeah. So,
and when they know that's your location, it's easy to find. It is simply the corner. It is 100. It is arguably the easiest booth number to remember. And because it's near the games, and you primarily work with FECs, it's your clientele hanging out in that space anyway. versus many of the other F&B exhibitors that are basically attracting a lot of people who are then going to, make the queue and block.
Yeah. Edit this part out of your podcast.
Well, so I'm curious, actually.
Yeah. You're right, because you know what? Everybody plays game. They come down there that's probably the main focus is games, and even the bowling guys are now moving down this way, down towards us, a little bit. And the games are it, and they're always busy, even when I mean, I do my best not to leave my booth. I mean, I get, I got to be there all the time. But even if I walk up towards the end to get some, get a smoothie or something to drink, I look up, those aisles might start dying down in the afternoon, man, not the game section. It's always got people coming and going from it. So yeah, Matt, I'll never change from there. I'll be there as long as I'm able to. Yeah.
It's been a few years since I visited your booth at IAAPA. Are you giving out samples?
Oh yeah. We do a much better job of pre-qualifying people, because if I start feeding everybody, I got a line a mile long and I don't have anybody time to talk to anybody. So now we pre-qualify them, we talk to them, see what they're up to, where they're in the process, what are they looking for, and then we're like, okay, I'll make you pizza.
Yeah. So I've always been curious about that from the F&B vendors that attract a lot of attention and get a lot of exposure, but it is simply because you can eat their product and people will design even their meal schedule around the IAAPA show floor.
Yep.
That's very contradictory to people like you who you need to actually create sales. So that, I've always been very curious about the F&B vendor exhibiting strategy at a trade show like IAAPA.
Yeah, I think it's a waste to just hand out samples and go down there, because you don't get quality time with people. And I don't know. Listen, we learned the hard way. We used to have a line from the time we started at 10 o'clock till at 5:45, and we just had to stop. And finally, one time I'm like, Ann and I, my director of marketing, we would go down the aisle, go down the list of attendees. There'd be 30 of them in line. And we go down and see the blue was attendee and like yellow was exhibitor. I can't remember a few years ago they had, but we go by, it's all yellow exhibitors. I'm like, that's it, no more. So the following year, I stand there right in my booth. I greet them and say, hey, how are you? Were you in the process? What are you up to? What are you doing? And then I by this time I'm fairly trained in figuring out, that. And it's a little bit controversial to some people, but me, it's my life. It's my industry. It's, it's my livelihood. It's the pipeline, and so the person who says, oh, I'm looking for real estate and everything, they're my perfect customer. I love that, because I'll show them how the pizza's made. I'll do it. For the next 2 years, all they hear is, well, you got to have pizza, got to have pizza, got to have pizza. They come to IAAPA, and there I am, So we take our time to work with people who are in the process or are open, or you'd be surprised how many people come up and go, our pizza's terrible. Can you help us? I'm like, yeah, hang on, let me make you pizza. Yeah, for sure. But yeah.
So you mentioned, the people in there and they're in a process. What do you find is like the sales cycle, for someone that's looking for pizza? Is it based on, if they're still building their facility, if they're new, if they don't like their pizza and they're just getting it in there? Does it kind of vary? I'm just curious, like what that cycle's like.
We were talking about this. I think the fastest sales cycle we ever had was somebody who already they've been up and running and everything else. And the guy who said, he was outside of Philadelphia in the middle of Pennsylvania, horrible. Our stuff is terrible. I love your stuff. How do I switch? And then that was just a question of getting him set up with our distributor, a credit application. And he was up in business in 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, it was fantastic. But it depends on where you are. We have to say, do you have an oven? So the sales cycle, if you don't have an oven, is anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks and 4 to 5 months. If you're under construction, it's probably 8 to 12 months, somewhere along in there. And then if you're looking for real estate, it could be anywhere between 18 and 36 months, just depending on where they're at. So but that's why IAAPA is so important, because it's a pipeline. It's really not about, I'm not the game guy who sells the game right there and they take it home with them. And IAAPA is a pipeline, and a familiarity with me, as you say in booth 100, it's a familiarity issue with us.
Sure.
I want to connect all this to something you said very back to the beginning. You mentioned IAAPA, the pipeline, meeting people at the booth. When you were talking about sitting at the table with all the executives and Vice President Dan Quayle, you briefly stopped and interjected and said, it's really important to meet everybody. And I'm curious if you can maybe expand specifically on that, whether you want to connect it back to that experience or link it directly to what we're talking with networking, really.
Yeah, because one of the guys I met in when I was living over there, he was the president of Burger King International. He lived in London, but I kept running into him at all these events and conferences I got invited to, and sit him, and I got to know him pretty well, after a couple of years there, and then he became president of Brugger's. So when I left, he called me back in, so I stayed in touch with him, and then he picked me off and sent me to Italy. And then so staying in touch and meeting people is I mean, it's good old fashioned networking. You never know, and so at IAAPA, those folks who come through there and they come in and it's the old don't judge a book by its cover, man. Some of these folks come in and they just like, oh, I don't know, we got a little location here and there, and they have four bowling centers, I mean, so you just never know. You try and stay connected with those folks. At the time, way back when I was there in France, I was a younger man. I was on the move, and I didn't have money to buy a franchise or anything else. So I networked like crazy, and that's how I found Steve, and he took a liking to me, and I had some operational results that he could see, and so he was my mentor, man. He's very good to me because of he saw what I could do, and he wanted me a part of his program, and then he dished me off to the Italians for a few years.
So Jim, speaking of networking, you're obviously a very shy guy. Like
yeah.
I can't imagine you talking to
anyone. I'm a bon vivant.
Yeah. But a lot of people are not, right? And
yeah.
their personality doesn't lend themselves to just kind of being out there and talking to people and things like that. So what kind of advice do you have for people that may not be the bon vivant that can, still be successful in networking?
Well, those folks tend to find themselves over in the the water park area where they're technical stuff like that. I mean, you ever seen some of those pumps that are like the size of my car, my truck? I love that stuff, and they just have a different skill set, they're technical, and that you need that technical stuff in family entertainment centers. Even no matter what you do, you need technical people in trampoline parks. I mean, some of those places are so complex, man, with the electric where it comes in for games. I mean, it's everything else. So I would tell them to just follow their, I mean, it sounds corny, but follow their passion and follow their, if they don't want to be out front, then support the people who are, that kind of thing, because I mean, I depend on a lot of smart people, man, all the time, for stuff, and the people I mean, my sauce is the quietest guy I know, but he's very competent, and so I don't know. I think they have to figure their space out, more or less, because there's plenty of room in the family entertainment center world at IAAPA for technical. I mean, go to the roller coaster booths, man. I mean, the wheels are, this big, and half of IAAPA is technical stuff. Yeah, there's rah fun and games and stuff like that, but if you really take a look and walk that show floor, it is full of safety stuff. From water park stuff to roller coasters to the things you pull over. I mean, it's incredibly technically driven show. So I mean, there's plenty of room for those folks, Matt, for sure.
Yeah,
it's good advice. Good advice.
Yeah.
Switching gears back to pizza here. You specialize in installing, food service operations in small spaces. And I think you use the term, non-traditional spaces as well. And I'm curious as far as, every venue you work with, it's a different build out, it's a different, amount of square footage, probably different, configuration. What are maybe some of those challenges and even opportunities for working in spaces like that?
I wish I had a nickel for everybody come up and said, oh, we don't have a lot of space. I'm like, okay, all right, take me some pictures, draw some on the napkin, send it to me. So yeah, the smaller operations, Josh, are interesting because it's not about the pizza. The pizza's in a small spot this big. That's easy. Okay. What's hard is the support structure. Every health department in the United States, in every city, every county, you got to have a couple of hand sinks within, 10 or 12 feet from where your production is. You got to have a 3-bin sink to wash dishes, and those have to be the same size as the biggest dish you're washing. So that's a different size. You got to have freezers, you got to have coolers. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. Some people have grease traps now. They want you to put in, even though they're not producing any grease. So the pizza part is the easiest. It's the back of the house, so to say. That's the hardest thing for people to have and find. And I think in general, you have to have, you could do 400 square feet in a kitchen pretty good, front and back of the house. We've done it, in 400 square feet. It's tight, but that's the good news. And you know what the real opportunity is? I love small spaces because there's absolutely no room for stupidity. Okay, it's pizza, it's pretzels, and some fries and wings. That's it. Yeah, you're not adding nothing in a smaller kitchen. So it forces people to really cook more things more often, so they're fresher, hotter, and basically better for the guest. You know, so it's a double-edged sword, those small spaces, you know, double-edged sword.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But I can see the lack of opportunity to bring in some of those trends because you just don't have the space.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So there's no reason to. I'm curious, you know, we've been talking a lot about the Family Entertainment Center space, which is where, you know, a lot of the Perky's pizzas are. Is there plans, or are Perky's pizzas other places that people could find them?
Yeah, but not in the United States. I mean, we do a couple of I do a couple of supermarkets in the Caribbean. We do some supermarkets in the Middle East. Those are very, very busy places. I mean, crazy busy, you know, for pizza. But no, we and hotels. We do a lot of resorts and hotels. You know, and we do a lot of Puerto Rico, a lot of business down there and those places. So those are it. But mostly in the family entertainment system somehow, some way, Matt.
Yeah. Okay.
So if somebody's building out a new facility, and you know, maybe they're one of those people who approach you, they say, I'm looking at real estate, and they're very much, you know, at the forefront of all this, and can really incorporate this into their facility design. What are some of the things that they should be considering of to make sure that, knowing that they've got a pizza program going into it, they want to make sure they've got a successful operation?
You know, it depends on the size. The first thing I ask somebody, if we're doing Josh's bowling center, I'd say, Josh, how big are you looking at? You know, and you're going to say, 55 to 60,000 square feet. Oh, great. All right, good. Start there. Send me your plans. As soon as you engage your architect, everything else, let me work with the architect. Send me the plans, and I can talk to them about, you know, the size and where. If you're rehabbing a center, and I love old J.C. Penney's and old supermarkets because they have a lot of power. I love those places. You know, you got to work and work around that. And I'd say, you know, let's get started on that. The other thing I do is I say, Josh, get a Word document and give me your menu. What do you want to sell? What are your ideas? What are your fantasies? Tell me everything, and then I'll save you from yourself, okay? Because I have a list of everything that sells. I said it to everybody. I said to everybody, here you go. Here's the top items selling in Family Entertainment Center. Here you are. And so I would say, give me your menu. What do you want to sell? Because if you want to sell something, you know, your designer, your architect, and I, we have to find a place to receive it, store it, prep it, cook it, serve it, and then make arrangements to clean it up. And that's a lot, you know, even with pizza and you know, limited menu, that's a lot of items. I mean, you think about a cheeseburger, it's got 9 items on it, something like that. I mean, that's a lot. If you include the condiments out there and all that sort of kind of stuff, it's crazy. So basically, we start out here with, what do you want to do? How much room do you have? And then we start narrowing it down. You're doing liquor, you do full bar, you do beer and wine. Beer and wine has become very popular now. You know, liquor holds another level, but beer and wine has become very popular in locations. So we start with, that's where we start the design process, and then we sketch it out, and then we you know, we work with you to say, you know, here's how much space you need, get a budget together, all that kind of stuff. But really it comes down to your philosophy. Well, what is the operator's philosophy? You know, are you going to treat your kitchen like a revenue generating attraction that it should be? Or are you just going to, it's going to be like, it's kind of an afterthought, you know? You really got to take ownership of it if you're an operator in the design process, because design is forever. I mean, it's really expensive to move water and power. Okay, so we got to get it right the first time. You know, we always build in a little elbow room, but boy, we got to get it right the first time on what we do with the space. And then assets, man. You know, if you have 55,000 square feet, you need 3 ovens. I don't care what you say. You know, you need 3 ovens. You need a 60-inch prep unit. You need this much space. You know, this is what you need. You know, so we work with them and do the best we can to coach them up and put them on the path of success for the food and beverage operation. You know, for sure. And it's a 2-part process in the design process, that is. And also we leave a little bit of elbow room, you know, for expansion and, you know, that kind of stuff, you know, because it's really hard to open up a restaurant and a family entertainment center at the same time. They're 2 different things, you know. So I'm like, look, start small. We can always add, a few months from now, we can always add this, always add that, you know, no big deal. But start out with a great pizza, great tenders, great fries, great icy, you know, start out with the basics that people go, wow, that was really good. And then add something later. So, but the design process is critical for infrastructure. And, you know, that's really important to get that right with the architect and the visions of the customer.
You know, one of the things I'm curious about, and it kind of goes back to IAAPA, is that you think about expanding and you know, doing more business, and so much of it is about innovation and what's new and what's cool. But you've had the same recipe for how many years? You started with quality. You know, so has the pizza changed all that much? And is there a next generation of pizza? Like, is there a future, or is that the best thing to do is to keep doing a really quality pizza that people are familiar with?
Well, that's interesting. The innovation in the pizza world has come in the cooking process. Okay, when I came here 26 years ago, we had it's called a G26 oven with a solid belt on it. The cook time was 6.5 minutes at like 550 degrees. Okay, now the same pizza is now cooked in a closed cavity oven at 2.5 minutes at 500 degrees. Same recipe, same everything. So the technological revolution in pizza and food equipment, food processing, food everything is, now, it's not Windows 98 anymore. We really got really got ahead of that. It's come out, and there's some companies that do some fantastic work on that side, and that's helping with labor. That's helping out with labor, so you don't have people standing around so much anymore. But the thing about pizza, it will always have a future because it's familiar. The number one selling item in the world, almost, except for I think somebody told me, I think white rice is the most consumed product. Pizza's number 2. Anyone can order it. You can send your 6-year-old to a snack bar with $20 and come back with a pizza. Okay, and that's dependable. Sure, there's fighting words, Mr. Chicago down here versus Detroit versus California thin versus So yeah, those are fighting words, but it's very familiar. Everybody has it. Everybody's familiar with it. You walk up and order it and everything else. It's unlimited, and the basics will always rule the world, but there's also an entire ecosystem out there of, this triple flour from Italy, that's just unbelievably so good. The San Marzano sauces that are coming in, the really like gourmet, high-end Italian, pure stuff coming in. There's always going to be that market for that somewhere, somehow, some way. Not so much in the family entertainment world, but it's there, and it'll always be there. And you know what? There are, I don't mean to pick on the FEC world, but because there are some operators out there who have some great pizzas. Believe me, and they put in that triple flour. They have the sauces that are made. They're doing their dough themselves. They've made it their life's work, man, to have a great pizza. So there are people out there doing it, but they're the one-off. They're not the norm. For the rest of us, it's your great tasting Perky's pizza. There down the middle, because it can be, is it made? It's dependable. It's consistent. It doesn't take a lot of labor and stuff like that. So, but pizza world will always be here, front and center. It's the number one selling item in family entertainment centers. Nothing's going to replace it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jim, this has been so fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us over the course of this interview. As we start to wind this down, if people want to learn more about Perky's, or if they want to get a hold of you directly, where would you send them?
They can start at perkyspizza.com. That's a great place. We could fill out a customer survey or something like that, and it comes to us. Or call the office, 813-855-7700. Or you can call me on my cell phone, 813-382-6044. That's what it's for. And we're glad to talk to anybody anytime about anything, especially Perky's Pizza. And I appreciate that, Josh. Let me say that. But believe it or not, it starts with a conversation. Sometimes you just got to talk to somebody 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, And I'm already planning seeing people next year at IAAPA. They're like, hey, we're going to be here next year. We're going to do something. I'm like, okay, so it takes a long time, and that's what we're here for.
Excellent. Well, Jim, we'll make sure that all of that gets in the show notes. But I have one last, maybe fighting words question when it comes to pizza, and you might know what it is. Does pineapple belong on a pizza?
No. I'll give you ham only because in Puerto Rico and in the Central American country, ham is the number one item down there, and so is place. But pineapple. I can't. Josh doesn't even believe pineapple should belong on there either. I know that, Chicago guy. So yeah.
I just had to ask because you're a global pizza expert. If we can finally put that to bed, that'd be awesome. So thank you for your input. I appreciate it.
Oh, sure. Hey, listen, I can do a podcast on what I've seen on pizzas around the world, man. You don't even want to know. But yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to schedule a part 2 of that.
Yeah. Well, Jim, thank you again for your time. This has been just a wonderful and delicious conversation. And for everybody out there who's watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.